Thank you so much to Squarespace, as always, for sponsoring this video and my art channel. Welcome! I have a new sketchbook video for you guys. Super excited to show some of the process of this one. It's been a long time coming. If you happen to be new here by some chance, welcome to my channel. I am a full-time illustrator and comic artist, and I'm currently working on a huge project called Gloaming Veil, which is an original story and comic, and you can read it at gloamingveil.com. Link in my description. So before I get into the process of the sketchbook page, I have some great news. I finally opened my shop. I know I've been talking about it a lot for like a couple of months at this point, but it is open at long last and going good so far. And I added some bundle options for my sticker packs, sticker sheets, and sticker like individual stickers. And I have just a couple of new things, but I just wanted to quickly show you guys a flip through for my two current sketchbooks or art books that are available in my shop. The first one is a sketch collection called Halcyon Days, and it mostly features traditional sketches, but it's got some digital ones as well, and it's completely filled with all sorts of stuff and even some finished illustrations that I didn't want to put in my other art books. And a slightly older art book called Milk of Melancholy, which mostly has finished illustrations but some sketches as well, and I love both these art books. Just wanted to give you a quick glimpse if you have not seen these before, or if you're new here, I guess. And I also wanted to show you the bundle deal that I have for both of these art books that also contains one of my favorite prints and a couple of stickers and my favorite sticker sheet. So this is like a really good deal, and it's like the most popular item in my shop so far since I've opened it, so check it out. And before I continue, just one more thing. This is one new sticker that I have of Sock character from my comic. I love how it turned out. So that's it. You can find my shop at cosmicspectrum.art. And now let's get into the process of the sketchbook page. So, like I mentioned earlier, it was actually a really long time coming. So, as some of you may remember if you've been following me for a while, I did a similar collage style sketchbook page a couple of years ago featuring two different characters, Heijun and Noel. Both the characters are from my comic, as are these guys as well. And Heijun is here once more. So, initially, I put together this collage 2 years ago, or however long, like 3 years ago, I don't remember at this point, with the intention of making a matching piece of Sock and Fiona, but I just could not get an idea that I was happy with for the composition. And like I drew a couple of thumbnails that looked okay, but then when I tried sketching them into the actual sketchbook page, I really wasn't happy with the results. And if you guys saw a couple of my like latest videos, especially the one prior to this one, you can see sometimes I will erase a pose like a million times before I'm happy with it. And I guess back then it was one of those times where I just could not get anything that I wanted to continue with, so I just erased the whole sketch and just left it. And this page was just like this with the collage for the longest time. And I finally, for whatever reason, decided to revisit it. I actually think mostly it's because I've spent the last few weeks storyboarding the second chapter of Gloaming Veil. And the second chapter has a lot of Sock and Fiona in it. So it basically like mostly features them too. And that put me in the mood of wanting to draw an illustration of them. So I guess that's probably why I thought of revisiting this page again. But yeah, so since I started such a long time ago, I don't have the footage of like putting the collage together, but it's pretty straightforward. I just bought this aesthetic green/beige collage pack from some Asian stationery shop, and most of them were just in this pack. I think a couple of them may have been from a different source, but they're just like collage stickers that I sort of randomly stuck to the page. And then I also don't have the footage of the initial sketch, as you can see, because I just wanted to concentrate, and I tried to film it at first, but honestly, like, my head just kept coming into the view of the camera and like blocking the view, and my hair was like sticking out. I don't know, whatever. I just wanted to kind of get close to the page. Sometimes when I'm concentrating really hard and I'm just like extra paying attention to what I'm doing, which is typically the very initial sketching phase when I draw traditionally, I just need to really zone in, and for that reason I just didn't even bother filming it after I kept blocking the view with my head. But anyways, I digress. So what I'm showing you here is basically the secondary stage, which comes after having established the rough sketch. Even the rough sketch was actually relatively clean, as it turned out. So this is basically like the inking step, except instead of inking, I'm just using the exact same pencil that I used to put the sketch down in the first place. And the only difference is this time I'm just erasing as I go. And as you saw at the beginning of the process footage, I use a kneadable eraser quite a lot. I really, really love using a kneadable eraser because it kind of just eats all the pigment of the graphite, and after you knead it a little bit, the pigment just gets distributed, and there's essentially no chance of any of it landing back on the page. Whereas I find that using a regular eraser, I just have smudges like all the time. Even if it's a really subtle smudge that comes from the eraser, it just bothers me to no end. So for that reason, I heavily prefer just using the kneaded eraser, kneadable eraser. Although it's I don't know, I use it for like details as well, but if I want to be super precise with erasing something, I do have a small Tombow mono eraser tool which I use for like really tiny details, which I think you'll see at some point in this process. But anyhow, so when I move on to cleaning up the illustration, I just go in a lot heavier, and before I do that, I take the kneadable eraser and erase most of the sketch just enough so that you can still see the silhouette of it and all the major parts that I put in pretty clearly, but the rest of it, but it's like still pretty faint. So it's basically like the equivalent of taking a layer in Photoshop or whatever program you might use to draw in digitally and just toning down the opacity of the sketch. So it's like the same thing as doing that basically. So let me take a quick minute to tell you about Squarespace, my sponsor and the #1 platform for building my websites. I used to be super weary of making a website due to frustration with technology and just feeling lost, and frankly, just being too lazy to figure it out. And thankfully, Squarespace has proved to be the perfect solution to all of that because of how easy and straightforward their website engine is to use. They have an amazing dynamic website building platform that can generate a website according to your specific needs, or you can just use one of the many pre-built templates and customize them to get the perfect website for you. The customization is honestly amazing, and you can make your website as elaborate as you want. Squarespace also allows you to have all the business options like a shop or a paid community available to you down the line whenever you need them. It's an absolute must to have a nice website showcasing your work if you want to be a full-time professional artist, so it's best to get started as soon as you can, which you can do for free. So once you build your dream website and are ready to show it to the world, head to squarespace.com/cosmicspectrumart to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Happy website building. And now back to the video. So I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about what I really, really like about the pencil. Is something I was thinking about while I was working on this. So I find that one of the things that are so nice and satisfying about using a mechanical pencil instead of inking like I usually do is that it really does allow for a much more variety in pressure, like using pressure. So in addition to having some width pressure, I'm also getting opacity pressure when I use pencil, which is something that I'm not used to, but I absolutely adore. It makes drawing a lot more fun and actually a lot easier in some ways, because it's like you can get the shading in done at the same time as you're getting the lines in, And that's something that's absolutely off the table usually with ink, because with ink, when I try to do shading at the same time as putting in the line work, I typically have to switch tools from using a G-nib or like any sort of thin pen and an actual brush. Like when I want to put in some shadows with ink, I usually have to just like dilute the ink substantially and then use an actual brush and remove some of the ink with a tissue, and it's like this whole messy process. And as you guys have seen from my last video and probably many others, like I always end up dropping the ink. So long story short, pencil is just so much cleaner and allows for so much more freedom, like quick variation in tone and line width. And yeah, I'm just like falling in love with drawing with a pencil all over again. I used to do it a little more often when I was in college, but after I graduated, for whatever reason, mechanical pencil, or just pencils in general, is not something I use almost at all when it comes to drawing, like even sketching. I only ever really sketch with a pen or a colored pencil, so this was super fun. And I really want to try bringing in more illustrations like this, because I'm really seeing how potentially, if I adjust the way that I approach these types of illustrations, I can probably figure out how to color them digitally afterwards that will look appealing. So I'm gonna have to look into that. I'm just like imagining how color might work with line work and a bit of shading like this. So that's something for the future. But for the time being, so just to explain a little bit about what's going on in this illustration, there's really not that much to explain, but like I mentioned, I wanted to initially just do Sock and Fiona, but when I tried to do this a couple of years ago, I just couldn't come up with a composition that I liked. And this time around, I decided to just add Heijin in there as well, because her hair is such a fun element that I always use to aid the composition in one way or another. And it really made it easier for me to just connect the two figures of Sock and Fiona somehow, because honestly in the story, like their interactions are pretty unclear to me. Like the way, like I actually haven't gotten to any points in the script yet where they have interacted, and I don't even know how that's gonna go yet. Like that's kind of an interesting future thing for me, like a fun thing to look forward to. But their relationship is not like super important in the story, like without saying too much. Like obviously they're gonna interact at some point, but it's nothing major. And so it was hard for me to come up with a composition to put them to get like next to each other, you know, because usually all my decisions when it comes to illustrations relating to my comic are informed by some sort of story beat in my head. Look at this. Our typical visitor arrives. He'll always tries to get on top of what I'm drawing when I'm sitting at this desk, so it's really delightful. But also I usually have to just push him a little bit to the side so that he's not getting in the way. Anyways, so yeah, putting Heijin between them made the most sense in terms of story, and it also really helped to give me a bunch of elements to work with. And yeah, I guess that's, you know, as much as I'm gonna say about this at the moment. And another fun thing about this illustration that's different from what I usually do is that the characters are all different sizes, and that's something that's new and something I actually like quite a bit. It's a little bit more reminiscent of a movie poster rather than just like a comic illustration, I guess. Maybe I just don't look at enough comics, but this is not something I usually do with characters, but I think it turned out looking pretty good, so I'm gonna see if I can bring this sort of composition in at some point in the future. So that was fun. And yeah, I was really taking my time shading this, and I had a blast. It was super relaxing. And of course, when I was done with the line work and most of the shading, I decided to bring in Screentones, and hoping that they stick better than they did last time, because a couple of times, like 2 sketchbook sessions ago, I just kept having this issue where it kept unsticking from the page, and it was a big pain in the ass. But this time went a little bit better, probably because the piece was bigger, so it just had more paper to cling to. But anyways, yeah, I'm still really having a ton of fun using Screentones. I kind of regret not buying any more fun patterns and just like interesting patterns that are different, because every time I flip through the Screentone sheets that I got for my trip to Japan last year, I noticed that they're all kind of boring, and they're just like either subtle gradients or just like slightly smaller gradients, but basically they're all just like solid or gradients. And the only fun pattern I got was like a checker pattern, like a tartan type of pattern, and I didn't want to use that because there's already that pattern in the illustration on the sides there. So I decided to bring in washi tape instead, and I selected washi tape based on color scheme. Looks a little flowery, definitely not something Sock would ever actually wear, which is kind of hilarious, but you know, it worked for the rest of the illustration. The colors kind of matched, so I just went with it because I didn't have a whole lot of other choices that worked with these colors. So I think it turned out looking pretty good in the end. And washi tape was a little bit trickier to work with because it's so much more sticky, but it did, like, the only major, I guess, thing that happened is if I stuck it on the wrong, like, not correctly the first time and I had to take it off, it essentially just picked up all the graphite with it. So if you're gonna try to do this, be careful about putting the washi tape on top of the graphite and make sure it's like decisive, because if you put it in the wrong place and you lift it, the graphite's gonna be gone and you're gonna have to redraw whatever was under it. So I had to do that a couple of times, but it wasn't a big deal. And after I finished putting in the last collage elements, I decided to go back in and just add more depth and details to Heijin's hair, because I found that it was kind of blending into Sock's hair, because tonally it ended up quite similar to the Screentones that I chose. And I'm glad I made this decision because it actually just like added a lot of interest and detail into the center of the drawing, and I thought it created a nice contrast with how simply I approached Sock's hair. So there's that. And yeah, that's one of the other magical aspects of using a pencil like this, a mechanical pencil, is that it's actually pretty straightforward to fill in large areas with one tone. And then the harder you press, the darker it's going to get. And it actually does get quite dark, which is nice. And the only thing that I will say that bothers me about graphite, and always has and probably always will, is just the fact that it's very reflective. So depending on the lighting, the illustration just kind of looks washed out, especially like in this footage and a lot of the segments. That's one of the things that I wish was different, or I wish I could fix something about my lighting, but it's really difficult to photograph. So hopefully I can just scan it and show you guys like a proper version to do it justice, because it is quite dark if you look at it in proper lighting, and otherwise it just keeps like shining and reflecting off of the light. But here is the finished thing, and here is a little bit of a closer juicy look at all the little details. One of the things that I love the most about traditional art is just the texture and the real kind of feel that it has, even when you look at it on footage. But it's so much better in person, always. But yeah, it's like this type of texture that's just impossible to replicate when it comes to digital art. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really hope you check out my shop if you're interested in my art books or my stickers or any of the other things that I make. Unfortunately, it's just those 3 things at the time, basically, but hopefully in the future I'll be more adventurous with my products. Yeah, I hope to see you guys in my next video, and please check out my comic at gloamingveil.com if you haven't already. Bye!